All right, let's pull back the curtain on one of the most essential, yet, let's be honest, misunderstood jobs out there. We're going to demystify what a software engineer actually does all day.
You know, every single time you use an app, check your bank account, or just scroll through a website, there's this massive, incredibly complex dance happening in the background. It feels instant, right? But it is anything but simple. So the best way to picture all this, think of our entire digital world as a giant, invisible factory. It's running 24/7, constantly building and maintaining all the services we totally rely on.
Yeah, this factory is the engine that powers everything, from your social media feed to your online banking. And these aren't simple machines, they're incredibly complex systems built to handle millions of requests every single second.
Just think about logging into an app for a second. That one little click? It sets off this crazy journey through a maze of data checks, security protocols, and server requests. And it's our constant demand for things to be faster, better, and more secure that keeps this factory innovating at a wild pace.
Okay, so who designs the blueprints for this factory? Who's operating all the machinery? Well, this is where the software engineer comes in. They are quite literally the architects and the builders of our digital world.
So that's the textbook definition, right? They're the problem solvers who create the systems we use every day. But what does that actually look like when they sit down at their desk?
Yeah, that old stereotype of a lone coder hammering away in a dark room is completely out of date. Today, the job is so much more about high-level architecture, about making big decisions, and about translating what we, as humans, need into a technical solution. The coding? That's just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle.
Sticking with our factory analogy, you can think of it like two main assembly lines. The front end is everything you see and touch, the buttons, the layout, the pretty visuals. The back end? That's all the heavy machinery behind the wall. The servers, the databases, and the APIs, those are the messengers that let all the different parts of the factory talk to each other.
And you know, this job is changing fast. Tools like GitHub Copilot are now writing a lot of the basic, repetitive code themselves. This is a game changer because it frees up the human engineers to focus on the really big questions. How should this whole system be designed? How do we make it secure? How do we make sure it can grow? The human expertise is becoming more valuable than ever.
Okay, so just like in any real factory, you can't just build something and kick it out the door. Nope. There is a super critical quality control stage to make sure every single part of the machine runs perfectly.
And honestly, a huge chunk of an engineer's day is all about this. They're running tests to catch errors, they're hunting down and squashing bugs, and, this is a big one, they're reviewing each other's work.
This is a core practice called a code review. It's really a collaborative process where one engineer acts as a second pair of eyes for a teammate. And it's not just about catching typos. It's about sharing knowledge and making the entire system healthier and stronger over time.
And I love this quote from Google's engineering team because it just nails the whole philosophy. It's not about writing perfect code, because, spoiler alert, there's no such thing. The real goal is to make the code just a little bit better with every single change. It's all about a culture of constant small improvements. And all this talk about reviewing each other's work points to a really big truth about the modern factory floor. Software development is absolutely a team sport.
I mean, get this. A Stack Overflow survey found that a whopping 90% of software engineers talk with people outside their direct team at least once a week. They're constantly collaborating with product managers, designers, and of course, other engineers.
The most common team ritual you'll see is the daily stand-up. It's a quick 15-minute huddle where everyone on the team answers these three simple questions. It's designed to keep everyone in sync, flag problems early, and just make sure the whole assembly line is moving in the same direction.
But, building the machine is really just the start. The real challenge is keeping it running smoothly for years and years. And that brings up some pretty complex long-term realities.
And that brings us to a super important concept called technical debt. The best way to think about it is like taking out a mortgage on your code. Sometimes, to get a new feature out the door fast, you have to take a shortcut. That shortcut is the debt. You've saved time now, but you will have to pay it back later with interest. And that interest comes in the form of harder maintenance or having to rewrite things down the line.
So with these kinds of long-term challenges, you might think it's a super stressful gig, but you might be surprised. The data from Stack Overflow actually shows that a huge majority, 70% of software engineers, are happy with their jobs.
So what's making them so happy? Well, it pretty much boils down to two big things: a competitive salary and a really good work-life balance, both of which have become hallmarks of the tech industry.
And this satisfaction is backed up by a pretty clear path for growth. You'll usually start as a junior, just learning the factory floor. Then, as a mid-level engineer, you can pretty much run a machine on your own. After that, at the senior level, you get a choice. You can either become a deep technical expert on the machinery, or you can become a leader, focusing more on team strategy and helping others grow.
So if you remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. The modern engineer is so much more than a coder. They're a designer, crafting these elegant, complex systems. They're a communicator, working with their team every day. And they're a translator, taking our messy human needs and turning them into a digital reality that actually works.
Which, of course, brings us to a final, really fascinating question. As AI gets better and better at writing the actual code, the role of the human engineer is just going to keep changing. What skills are going to matter most? And what will the digital builders of tomorrow really be focused on? That's definitely something to think about.